Coming up on Tech News today, how to bypass the carriers and get your Windows Phone updates. Also, Netflix wants to partner with the cable companies, and Facebook figures out how to collect even more data on you to your benefit. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, October 14th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Personal Capital. With Personal Capital, you'll finally have all your financial life in one place and get a clear view of everything you own. Best of all, it's free. To sign up, go to personalcapital.com/TNT. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT10. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Jason L.
Ayaz Akhtar has the day off, but that will not stop us from giving you the most important stories in the tech world, putting them in some context for you, starting with the news fuse. Wow. Microsoft announced Windows Phone 8 General Distribution Release 3, that's GDR3 to the folks in the know. It supports 1080p displays, larger screen sizes, Qualcomm's 8794 processor, and improves accessibility features for the visually impaired. The update should come to users over the next several months. So if you don't want to wait, Microsoft also announced its Windows Phone Preview for Developers program. Anyone who signs up as a Windows Phone Store or App Studio developer account, or who has a developer unlocked phone, will be able to install the Windows Phone Preview for Developers app and bypass the carriers to get updates.
HTC's One Max is a bigger version of the original One's 1080p LCD panel and possibly your new favorite phablet. I really wanted to say that. At 5.9 inches. The One Max includes a fingerprint scanner on its rear side. The back cover is now removable, so you can expand the 16 gigabyte or 32 gigabyte of onboard storage to up to 64 via micro SD. It's got a Snapdragon 600 with 2 gigabytes of RAM for processing, runs HTC's Android Skin Sense 5.5, which runs on top of Android 4.3, and HTC says global availability will start rolling out this week.
Facebook acquired Israeli mobile data optimization startup Onavo, giving Facebook an office in Tel Aviv. Onavo's apps use VPN and data compression to help smartphone owners optimize mobile data usage and will continue as a standalone app even after the acquisition. Facebook will likely use it for Internet.org. That's their outreach program trying to develop internet access in the developing world, as well as probably going to mine it for all of that data that it has on how people use the internet.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Netflix is in talk with Comcast, Suddenlink Communications, and other service providers to offer its online video service as an app on their set-top boxes. Talks are in early stages, say people who are familiar with the matter. Last month, Netflix teamed up with UK's Virgin Media to allow it to integrate its streaming service into Virgin service through TiVo set-top boxes. And Netflix claims it's had a standing invitation to US cable operators to add Netflix for 2 years.
LG has already said it has bendable and unbreakable smartphone displays in production, and gadget sources confirm a 6-inch curved phone will come from LG. 3 renders of the rumored G Flex, curved from top to bottom in a shape that Engadget calls orthogonal, but this announcer can only call a banana phone.
Ring, ring, ring.
According to a new survey by Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, or SERP, of U.S. customers who purchased Apple's latest iPhones during the last days of September, the 5S accounted for 64% of total iPhone sales following its launch that month. Meanwhile, the 5C accounted for 27%, with the legacy iPhone 4S making up the remaining 9%. SERP's data suggests Apple may have avoided cannibalization of its flagship phone, but that also those 5C numbers maybe aren't that exciting.
So I put them on flapjacks. Sure.
Yeah.
Canadians may soon get unbundled cable and satellite television. During CTV's show Question Period, Industry Minister James Moore said, "We want to unbundle television channels and allow Canadians to pick and pay the specific television channels that they want. Moore also said Canada's government is looking at preventing airline overbooking and curbing wireless roaming fees. And a pony.
Sonos has released a pony. No, it's released a $200 speaker, the Play One. It's about the size of a coffee can. I really had to think about what size coffee cans are these days, and is available either in white or black. The price not only allows Sonos to compete with cheaper Bluetooth-enabled speakers, but the company also says eventually apps will be able to build in Sonos integration natively, eliminating the need for a standalone Sonos app and allowing Sonos to work a lot more like Chromecast for music.
Jerry Ellsworth and Rick Johnson's Technical Illusions Company has launched a Kickstarter for their augmented reality glasses called CastR, AR, like augmented reality. The company began the project as a continuation of work they had begun while at Valve. CastR glasses project stereoscopic 3D images on an auto-reflective surface. A clip-on can then provide true augmented reality without the need for the reflective surface, or virtual reality similar to the Oculus Rift. It's not wireless, but that could be possible in the future. The glasses work with a magic wand input device and an RFID tracking grid that you can get depending on what level you back at. The Kickstarter hopes to raise $400,000 by November 14th.
Have a D-Link router? If so, a serious vulnerability has been discovered that could affect you. A writer from embedded device hacking website /dev/TTYS0 found a backdoor to the router along with full access to the router's web configuration interface. So anyone connected to the router through Ethernet or Wi-Fi can set their browser's user agent string to a specific code word and then try to access the web configuration panel. Now, only a certain selection of routers are known to be affected, all which use the DIR 100 firmware, but there's the possibility that firmware for other D-Link routers also include this backdoor code. Have caution.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Personal Capital. Here's the catch-22 of your Joseph Heller-like financial life. The more progress you make, the more complicated things get. Money means more problems, but you want more money. Accounts are scattered everywhere. You got your checking, you got your savings, you got your retirement, you got your credit account, you got your investment account, you got your mortgage, you got your loan. How are you going to make great investment decisions when you're only seeing one piece of the puzzle at the time? That's why you need Personal Capital. Changes the game by combining all your financial accounts and giving you a total real-time snapshot of all your finances. You get the graphs, the charts, the reports that tell you the whole story. It's like they call it financial GPS at your fingertips. And right now you can use Personal Capital for free. So why not try it? Go to personalcapital.com/TNT. Signing up takes just a minute. It'll pay big dividends by helping you make better investment decisions immediately. And your financial life, hopefully, is going to be more complicated tomorrow. So why wait? Sign up now. Absolutely free. Personalcapital.com/TNT. Get your free Personal Capital account. Smart investing means seeing the big picture. So start today. Visit personalcapital.com/TNT. And we thank Personal Capital for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to discuss the stories of the day, very happy to have Rob Reed, author of this book right here, Year Zero, and founder of listen.com/Rhapsody. How's it going, Rob? Good to see you.
Doing well. It's good to be here.
So you've been making the rounds. We had you on Sword and Laser as well because you've got a cheap deal on your book. Cheap is always a bad word. I shouldn't use that word. But you can get a great book for a cheap price.
I think cheap is a bullseye description when we're talking about 99 cents. So I'm really actually excited that Random House is being bold and innovative and experimenting with pricing. So my novel came out a little more than a year ago. And for a few days, they are selling the ebook, unfortunately, just in the U.S. So apologies to people outside of the U.S. for 99 cents.
Nice. I would highly recommend it. It's a great book. I've read it myself. Rob's also just a really smart guy, which was one of the reasons I wanted to get him on Tech News Today. We got some great stories to talk about. Let's start with that Windows Phone 8 update. GDR3 supports 1080p displays, supports larger screens up to 6 live tiles in a row. So you can have phablets, as they call them these days. Email, photos, people, music, and videos apps all now will scale to those screens. Qualcomm processor, as I mentioned, they have a driving mode in there that limits the number of notifications when you're connected to Bluetooth, and it can tell that you're moving at a high rate of speed. Improved accessibility, a rotation lock now, so you can, if you're laying down on your side and reading it, it won't flip around. But the problem is it's available over the next several months. So what you can do now is become a developer. Now you say, oh, I don't want to develop apps for the phone. You don't have to be a developer. You can sign up for $19 a month and be able to get these updates. That may be a little steep for some, but it's one of those Microsoft programs that you can take advantage of to get something. It, however, comes with some disadvantages. You have to install the Windows Phone Preview for Developers app and get the updates through there. It may void your warranty with either your carrier or your device manufacturer, and there's no way to go back to restore earlier versions. So buyer beware here if you're really enthusiastic. Rob, pick one to react to, or both, I guess. Windows Phone 8, any updates here that turn your head as a phone user? And would you be one of those guys to plop down money for a carrier-free update if you had the opportunity?
Well, you were mentioning the disadvantages of getting the developer update, such as it could void the warranty. It's $19. Let's not forget that it also requires that you buy a Windows Phone. Actually, I'm kind of kidding. I've never used a Windows Phone myself, so I can't really comment on the user experience. But everybody I know has one, kind of loves it. And I personally love the fact that there are 3 competitors out there. But in order for them to really close the gap between themselves and iOS and Android, they definitely need that developer support. So anything that they do to open the developer program more broadly, I think, is a good thing. If anybody who feels like it can download the developer support kit for $19, a lot of people are going to do that because a lot of people who become developers start out as that sort of citizen developer, and I think it's smart that they're opening the door. I think I'm actually surprised at how narrow the gap was. I looked up, and it looks like iOS has about a 3-to-1 app advantage, which is a lot narrower than I thought. So I think this is a good move. And all the stuff on there, I've been kind of intrigued by Windows Phone for a while. I might take the leap now.
By the way, I should point out it's $19 a year for the developer account,
That's
not a month. I
pretty cheap.
misspoke when I said that earlier.
That won't break anybody. That's smart.
The voiding the warranties, though, and particularly not being able to restore to an earlier version of something that you were running, if for whatever reason you're like, you know what, this is just not ready for prime time or not for me, that's concerning.
Yeah.
And these sort of things often have issues that you were unable to foresee before you upgraded, and then it's like, now it's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like that part of this doesn't sound very well thought out to me.
Now, have either of you or any of the 3 of you, used a Windows Phone as your principal phone?
Never.
For a long period of time?
No, I've tried them out, but I haven't made it my go-to device yet.
I've been hearing great things about them, and I'm tempted to give it a shot for maybe a year.
A year?
I use phones for about a year.
Take the Windows Phone Challenge.
Take the Windows Phone Challenge, right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you. I think that, and we have coworkers here that absolutely love Windows Phone. They love the design. They love the interface. They're constantly pointing out, well, this is really cool. You can't do this on any of your other phones. And they're right. There are really cool things about it. But it just has such a long way to go.
And I've always been kind of like anti-Microsoft. I mean, I really never liked the Windows OSs. I'm very, very happy Mac guy now. So it's weird for me to say this, but I've been seeing, when my friends show them to me, they do look pretty cool. I like these 6 live tiles. That sounds fabulous. Called Phablet, right? So.
Yeah.
One of the knocks on any non-iOS phone, whether it's Android or Windows Phone, is a lot of times the apps come to iOS first. And that's one of the problems I have is I want to try out these apps when they come into the news. Onavo, I had never tried it out, and we got the news today, Sarah, that Facebook has purchased them. What are they going to do with them?
Well, some of the details are still a little bit murky. This news broke actually right before I went to bed last night because it was today in Israel, which is where Onavo is based. They're a mobile data optimization startup. Before being acquired by Facebook, what Onavo describes itself as is a company that helps millions of users worldwide optimize their use of mobile data services. Now, what that means is people in emerging markets can help use Onavo to get the most out of a mobile data deal, let's say, or a smartphone credit. Now, as you mentioned in the news fuse, Tom, Facebook's whole Internet Org initiative is focused on lowering the cost of data so that more people who are offline in parts of the world who kind of aren't on level playing field can get up to speed. So this all seems like it's in line. As you also mentioned, Onavo is based in Tel Aviv. Israel has a huge startup scene right now. And it's kind of interesting that Facebook says, yeah, that's pretty much going to become headquarters for us, the first official Facebook headquarters in Israel, which is interesting because when they bought Waze, they didn't say the same thing, even though Waze is also based in Israel. So Onavo's service can also be a resource for app usage. So I wonder, okay, well, there's a whole we're doing good part of the story where Facebook's like, we want to get as many people as we can online, and internet.org is all about that, and Mark Zuckerberg has been very vocal about this. But it does seem like it would be just a great company to have under its wing to find out who is using its services and to be able to glean as much data as possible. Rob, how much do you think this is about getting the world online, and how much do you think it's about getting Facebook hooks into people who maybe would know Facebook first?
I mean, I had not heard of Onavo until this announcement came down, and I went to their website and watched the video that explains pretty quickly and cleanly what the app does. And basically, as we're talking about, it allows somebody who's using mobile data to use a lot less of it to access a constant amount of content. And so I assume that there's some really smart proxy server caching that's going on, maybe some caching that goes on the phone itself. Whatever it is, by looking at the video, it appears that they're claiming you can use maybe a third as much data as you would otherwise use. That is certainly something that would be incredibly valuable if you're in a developing country or you're on a limited data package and you don't have a lot of money. But it's something that would be incredibly valuable to almost anybody. I think a lot of us go over our data allocations on our cell phones, and that would be beneficial to anybody at any kind of price point. And on top of that, it's going to, assuming it works as advertised, and I'm sure that Facebook did their due diligence, and so there's something very real under the hood, it's going to enable much faster surfing, which I think any of us would like to have on our cell phones, even if you're on an LTE connection. Sometimes it can be, terribly slow. So I think that this is a really broadly useful application, definitely would help with their internet.org efforts in the developing world, but it's something that would just really help anybody. And I'm thinking maybe if the Facebook phone initiative becomes a really, really serious thing, this could become core technology that ships with their stack or ships with their Android flavor or ships with, whatever configuration of phone they put out there to just simply make it a better phone. I think it's a bigger thing than strictly developing world.
I think it's emblematic of why Facebook is doing internet.org because it's a way to do something good and definitely benefit yourself. Because you're right, Onavo, you made a great explanation of why it would be good for somebody who's on a limited data plan to be able to get more out of the internet. But it also sends all of your internet connections through their VPN, which means they can collect all of that usage data and have all of those analytics for everybody who's using Onavo as their mobile app. And that's what Facebook does. They sell ads against data. They sell analytics. And so this is exactly why they really want to do this and why they bought this company, is to add to that big pile of data that they're collecting on everyone.
Maybe the NSA will buy Onavo's closest competitor. Who knows?
Another company that wants to get everywhere is Netflix. Netflix talking with Comcast, talking with Suddenlink, talking with some other cable companies about getting on the set-top box. They've already done this in Europe. In fact, Virgin, as we mentioned in the news fuse in the UK, their set-top box is not only a TiVo box, but has Netflix on there as well. TiVo has done it here in the US, but not in cooperation with a cable company. So this would be a big deal for Netflix to be able to expand their footprint to people who haven't gone and bought a Roku or a TiVo or an Apple TV. It would just come on the box that they already have. And then, of course, we mentioned in the news fuse as well about the Canadian minister who said, we're going to unbundle things so the Canadians can just choose the channels they want and only pay for those. Netflix on my cable box, a la carte cable TV, even in Canada. What's next? Allowing consumers to watch what they want, when they want, where they want it, Rob? Is this a harbinger of things to come?
Oh, let's not get crazily carried away with that. I mean, I would like to think that. The thing that concerns me about the Netflix cable move is I look at the services and the software and so forth that's loaded on the cable provider provided box, and I generally find it to be unnavigable and maddening. And I think about the TiVo that I had almost 10 years ago, or maybe it was 10 years ago, shortly after TiVo came out, and how functional and easy to navigate it was and user-friendly. and I look at the DVRs that I've had in recent years on 3 different providers, AT&T, Time Warner, and Dish, which we've had over the years. And how can you ship a product 3 or 4 years after the original one and already be 15 years behind? The DVRs are dismal. The channel navigation is. And so I worry, even though I'm sure Netflix would put a very clean and sensibly designed app on a cable box, I worry about how difficult it would be to find and navigate and access that app through the cable user interface, particularly because so many of us have so many other devices that access services like Netflix connected to our TVs already. So I worry about the UI. But as far as the Canadian thing goes, I think unbundling cable is a wonderful idea. And with all the other things that you said that Canada is leading the charge on, I think you even mentioned a pony. It's not surprising that is starting out there. I think that's a great idea, and I'd love to see that get imported to our side of the border.
The pony is an unconfirmed rumor.
I know that. I know. Ponies are always unconfirmed rumors.
I'd love to see how something like Netflix would be integrated into what I've always thought is a really convoluted UI. Any cable carrier. I mean, they're all bad. Stayed at my mom's house last night. She's got DirecTV, and I'm just like, how do you live?
Nightmare.
I mean, you have so many choices, but it's physically hard to look at it.
Yeah.
Who needs that? Now, Netflix, not physically hard to look at, certainly does not replace cable, but there's a really happy medium somewhere in there. But how do you is there just some sort of a button and it takes you over to the Netflix interface and the cable box serves as just sort of a pass-through? Does it get baked in? I don't know. But I think that would be my initial concern is, does it just does it water down the Netflix experience so much that becomes ugly as well?
I think once you get into Netflixistan within your cable box, it'll be this kind of like wonderfully navigable environment. Imagine like you're going through this unmarked jungle and you're using a machete to cut your path, and then all of a sudden you get to this door and you're in like this shopping mall or something. I think it'll be kind of like that.
I don't think anyone's going to choose cable television when they don't have it now because Netflix is coming to the DVR.
No.
Like, that's just not going to happen. What Netflix is hoping is some people out there who may have heard of Netflix, but they're like, I just don't know what to mess with it, will suddenly find it on their box. And I think you guys make a good point of making it findable could be a challenge for some of these cable companies, but then want to sign up for Netflix because it's already there. They didn't have to buy anything or do anything else. They just sign up for the service. We'll see if people who are already paying $70, $90 a month want to pay another $8 for a service, because in that context, it starts to look a little odd, but people do it for HBO, so maybe it'll fit right into that metaphor. I don't know if the cable companies will go for it. What the cable companies get out of this is maybe a little customer satisfaction, but also competition. Netflix is going to have to cut them in on the price. That's the only way.
But it also keeps people from, if you can convince a consumer, oh, Netflix is this cool thing that you add on to your cable subscription that you already like, right? Then they don't equate Netflix with the alternative to cable.
Although
so if you can keep them as, but if you, right now it's sort of like, do you want cable or do you want something like Netflix and just sort of get by? If you can bundle them together and then be like, it's just only another $6 a month or whatever it ends up being, then you can trick customers into paying too much for stuff that they don't want to watch a little bit longer.
It feels Trojan horsey to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm, it's like, let's imagine that cable user who's never used Netflix and is faintly aware of it, and then they find it on their cable box because they're really good at navigating that thing. It's kind of a gateway drug. It's like okay, wow, this is pretty cool. Like many of the shows that I watch are available here on demand, and all these movies. I mean, it might be sort of a Trojan horse for cord cutting at some point. So, and I think, the cable companies will be aware of that, so they might kind of bury it in their menus. I think this is going to be a small bump for Netflix, probably.
It definitely is a push against HBO as well, because if suddenly Netflix and HBO are on the same box right next to each other, Netflix looks like a much better deal accessibility-wise. HBO says, well, you can get HBO Go and you can get it on these devices, and Netflix says we're everywhere. Yep. You subscribe to it from your cable company, you get it and everything else in the world. So it finishes that comprehensiveness for them. Let's take a quick break. Thank our sponsor for today's show, Squarespace.com, the all-in-one platform that makes it easy to create your own website, your own gallery, your own store. We use Squarespace on the Sword and Laser show. That's why it doesn't look like it was designed by me, because we use Squarespace. They've got these beautiful templates. You just go in and they got 20 new templates, but they have a bunch more in there. And you select it, you select the colors, you're off to the races with a great looking website that's easy to use, drag and drop. They have support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's inexpensive. It starts just $8 a month and includes a free domain name if you sign up for a year. And I love the mobile readiness of it. Every design, not some of the designs, every design automatically includes a unique mobile experience that matches the overall style of your website, but your content makes sense on the screen the person is looking at when they're looking at your website. And even the code is beautiful underneath. They take a lot of pride in that. Start a trial with no credit card required. Start building your website today. Do it right now. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use this offer code, TNT10, to get 10% off and to show your support for Tech News Today. We thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website. Foursquare's trying to find more ways to keep themselves in business, Sarah, but is it good for us?
Well, it's good for us if we want to use Foursquare. And a lot of people are like, why do I want to use Foursquare again? So the deal is that Foursquare has certainly over the last year, really morphed into a search and discovery platform and put a lot of less emphasis on the game aspect of checking into places and finding out where your friends are. So it's been testing an ad product for a few months with a small group of select partners. It has now opened up that to all of its 1.5 million or so merchants so that they all have access to this service. So as a small business, you can then create an ad using tools that Foursquare itself has developed for you. You can target relevant customers. You can set a monthly budget for ad spend for yourself. You can track your ad performance. So let's say a Foursquare user decides, okay, well, I'm walking down the street. I don't know. I need some place to eat for lunch. You open up Foursquare. You see a promoted suggestion for a burrito place nearby. Maybe you've never been there before. Maybe the burrito place is offering a special on their lunch menu, or maybe they'd like to push up a popular user tip that the tostada salad is, the best in the Bay Area, that type of a thing. So there's a lot of Foursquare data that can help you get into the store. Now, the reason that Foursquare says this is so effective for a merchant is because success is very, very easy to calculate on a per action basis. How many clicks did it get? All that stuff can be recorded. How many check-ins did it end up delivering? I mean, if I see something and I click on it and then I go into that burrito place, they can say, well, I mean, she obviously saw the ad and that's what brought her in. Merchants would be able to tell how many potential customers viewed their ad, but then how many just walked right in because of the ads themselves. So it provides users check-in or redeem special, and then you know that they came in. I mean, I suppose there's a little margin for error, but all of this stuff is location-based, so it's pretty easy to track. Rob, do you think that this is, it seems like this is much richer data than traditional advertising, but it still assumes that we as users will be taking advantage of all of these ads.
Yes.
What happens to Foursquare if nobody uses them?
Well, I find it intriguing because I used Foursquare when it came out, and I found very quickly that the check-in game just wasn't that much fun for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I wasn't ever going to become the mayor of my local Starbucks, and it got old really quickly. But this kind of opens up the possibility that becomes a very good economic reason to use Foursquare, which is suddenly like, I'm getting genuinely, legitimately interesting offers from places that are nearby as I walk down the street. Mm-hmm. I actually think it could lead to a real renaissance in Foursquare usage. And it's a chicken and egg thing, clearly, with the advertisers and the users. If the advertisers are making lots of great offers, then there's plenty of reason for the users to show up. But unless you get that sort of engine moving with lots of users responding to ads and vice versa, it's not going to get anywhere. But Foursquare already has a pretty good user base. So I think this is intriguing. Now, the question is, a lot of the search engine marketing techniques that people online have gotten very, very good at using, of figuring out A/B testing of different ads and figuring out how their funnel works and the lifetime value of a customer, That's good ninja skills for somebody who's running a website that's venture-backed and has a team of very analytical people to do that. The question is, are the 1.5 million small, local, generally mom-and-pop businesses that are on Foursquare gonna get that analytical, gonna get that sophisticated with the tools and be able to benefit from all of the data that will be available to them? We'll see. A lot of local merchants adopted Groupon. A lot of them decided that that was a terrible thing early in Groupon's history, when famously a lot of people made offers that were actually very uneconomic for their businesses. But as time has gone by, I think local merchants have gotten very sophisticated about Groupon. You don't hear those stories that much anymore, and Groupon continues to grow very quickly. So I'm intrigued by this. I think I might have to load up Foursquare again and see what kind of great coffee discounts I can get by using that app.
Tom, do you think there's any downside to being the merchant who's like, our burrito is half off? Because sometimes there's a little bit of like a psychological thing where you're like, I don't know, if they're pushing this at me, maybe they need more business.
Yeah, I think there is a downside, and maybe that it might also be just the annoyance factor. I'm one of the people who has continued to use Foursquare. I like to check in. I like to see who else nearby is where, and just kind of know what's going on, especially at conferences. It can be useful. I've mentioned that before. I like to have that record, go back in that history. And what I've noticed is I've started to use Foursquare along with Yelp to find out, okay, well, what things are nearby that are good, because they're doing reviews on Foursquare. So I think that this fits into that strategy. Foursquare is looking at that like, okay, people are starting to use this for recommendations. And we had this pilot program with American Express partnering up with local businesses. So we're not entirely new to these local mom and pop places. Let's see if we can get them to spend directly. And I think that risk is all of a sudden I'm annoyed. Instead of saying, hey, I got some nice recommendations from my friends on Foursquare, I'm saying, oh, somebody's pushing a 50% off coupon. That must not be the good place. Like you say, Sarah, it's like, or they wouldn't have to advertise. They could just go on the recommendations.
Having a 99-cent book that's normally $9, I take great exception to the notion that 50% off is some kind of a sign of poor quality. Well, maybe 50% off is, but man, when you're talking 90%, that means that's a whole different ballgame. Now, I hate to go all tinfoil hat, but again, just to bring up the NSA dimension of Foursquare, when you're doing all these check-ins, let's not forget that Osama bin Laden was discovered because he made himself mayor of Abbottabad. And so with this kind of, this kind of thing going on, I'm sure that some of the spooks... It's an
incentive not to do bad things.
It's an incentive not to do bad things, exactly.
Right, yeah.
If you have nothing to hide...
Then this shouldn't be a problem.
Then you should check in.
Check in.
Check on in.
Away.
That deal.
Nothing to worry about. But be careful how you sound when you call the call center. Natasha Singer at the New York Times has an interesting report on a company called Beyond Verbal Emotion. They're an analytics company, but they analyze speech. Speech analytics is about a $214 million market, according to estimates from DMG Consulting. But the different thing that Beyond Verbal is doing is analyzing your mood. They say their software can detect 400 variations of different moods based on your tone, the frequency of the voice, of the audio waves of your voice. They can detect not only callers' primary and secondary moods, but also their attitudes and underlying personalities. There's a video up on YouTube that they have demonstrating this, where they have Steve Jobs at the All Things D conference talking about the iPad. And they have emotional analysis based on what he's saying popping up there. Conflict between urges and self-control as he's talking about how he first came up with the idea of the iPad. And if you know the story of Steve Jobs, these analyses that they're making seem generally appropriate to the kind of personality we know he has. But if you're calling a call center, what they would use it for is, okay, this person is really frustrated and angry, just wants to vent, so just kind of let him go. Or this person is frustrated but is seeking solutions. Let's try to help them solve their problem more proactively. Or this person just wants a friend, wants to be friendly. Rob, do you want call centers analyzing your voice for your mood?
That worries me about as much as the notion of people who receive my checks learning about my childhood conflicts by analyzing my handwriting. I read this article and I looked at that video and it almost seemed like a horoscope or something like that. It said, based on his tone of voice, insistence, stubbornness, possible childish egoism, sadness mixed with happiness, possibly nostalgia. And, it seems, it seems like abracadabra kind of magic. And my guess is it's a little bit nonsensical. You said if you know Steve Jobs' history, reading the things that they infer from his tone of voice seems spot on. Well, of course, whoever put together that video clip also read Walter Isaacson's book, and they probably put these things down about Steve that we all know about Steve. It feels like a real stretch that all these profound insights can be determined from somebody's tone of voice. So I think it's fun. I think it's kind of cute. I probably put it in with horoscopes.
I also feel like I don't really mind if someone reads my mood. I just want the customer service to be awesome because of it. I had a recent issue with Comcast. My internet went down. I missed an episode of TNT, you might recall.
Yes, we do.
Oh, and boy, did I talk to a lot of people at Comcast. And I was livid for a variety of reasons. And I didn't think I had good customer service at all. I mean, I was keeping myself together, but I think anger, frustration, sadness, all of those things hopefully would have registered, loneliness, isolation, would have registered really high up. And I didn't, I felt like I was just, I had somebody who was like, go to step 2. We are sorry to hear that, Miss Lane. We are happy to help. And it sent me into a tailspin. So I go ahead and analyze my mood, but I want that money to be put towards customer service that's more effective, so that we can solve my problem and get off the phone quicker.
And how about if that customer service agent had said, Ms. Lane, I think you might have had some issues with your mom in 7th grade.
You seem pretty egotistical.
Why do you feel such a need to connect to strangers?
And if I'm not mistaken, you probably own at least one green purse. Come on.
There is an app where you could test this yourself to find out, if Rob, to your concern of like, oh, did they just fake this up when they were putting those Steve Jobs things on? Because we all know what Steve Jobs is like. I tried it this morning, and you know what? It told me I'm creative and confident and enthusiastic.
I'll bet your horoscope would say something like, when it says things like, literal quote from that video, sadness mixed with happiness. It's kind of, everybody's going to say yes, like you've got enough adjectives in there. It's going to feel like it's spot on. But I do think it diagnosed you perfectly correctly in that particular case.
And I don't think that they're spiking these results. I think there is something to be able to tell the mood, and there's science to back this up. So I haven't done due diligence to find out if Beyond Verbal is scientifically accurate. They could tell some things. Whether they can tell enough to really make it helpful and be replicable, that is an entirely fair question.
Bah, humbug.
That I would like to see demonstrated as well.
I will test it out. I'm being a naysayer.
Let's finish off with something fun. A new Sonos speaker that is a little less expensive than previous Sonos speakers.
Yeah, and it would fit in right with my current Sonos setup. I've got a main speaker that is, I've got my actual home theater, then I've got a speaker in my office, I've got a speaker in my bedroom. I'm a big Sonos believer, but the new Sonos Play 1 is $200, and it's smaller than what we've seen before from the speakers. They're kind of wirelessly daisy-chained. Once you've got your setup, you can pretty much just plug and play via the Sonos app, where you can play music. And it is wireless, but it does need plug-in power. So this is not really a Jawbone portable speaker competitor where you could take it on a boat or to a picnic or to the beach, because you do have to plug it in. It's for people who want to add a Sonos in their kitchen, or maybe you've got a Sonos soundbar and you think, well, surround sound would be kind of cool. I could have 2 of these on either side of my living room, not take up a lot of space, not end up having to, plunk down thousands of dollars. So the price is finally competitive with Bluetooth speakers, but it's not actually working via Bluetooth. Sonos has got their own solution. So on that way, the company seems to be pretty confident that they can sell a lot of them. But Sonos CEO John McFarlane says other companies who have products that are similar to Sonos, for example, Bose, he says, yeah, Bose is doing that too. They could be like the next RIM or Nokia. Meow. All right. Well, it's a very confident company. Also, McFarlane says he's not really interested in the Spotify partnership that we talked about earlier this year, with Spotify basically saying we can use our solution to be able to stream Spotify music to select manufacturing partners. He says, why would you tie in speaker systems to a brand of a single music service? That would be like going to the Pandora aisle at Best Buy versus the Spotify aisle. We're just not interested in doing that. What he does say is next in line, and he doesn't have an exact time frame, but it sounds like the company's working hard on it, is the idea that a Sonos solution would be baked into your favorite music apps. So right now, I would say my number one issue with Sonos is that the app itself is kind of clunky to use, and that's what I have to go through if I want to control my living room speakers via my phone. It would be awesome if I could go through my Pandora app and just sort of take out the need for that Sonos middleman, and their app isn't very nice looking anyway. He says it would work a lot like Chromecast. You know, you got music, then you just go ahead and go through Sonos as a solution. I don't know, Rob, what do you think? Is this new Play One the right product? I mean, does it make sense to have to go after the people who want to pay less but get a better experience, or at least a less limited experience than a Bluetooth solution?
Yeah, I think Sonos is an intriguing company. They pioneered the category, and at this point, you know, having pioneered the category, it's obviously becoming a really, really popular thing and widespread, and a lot of less expensive solutions are out there. They definitely have to go a little bit down market and have something come out at a lower price point. Way back in the day, I believe at Rhapsody, we were their very first partner. And there's something that is undeniably magical about setting up an unlimited streaming service, whether it's Rhapsody or Spotify or any one of the other ones, with this kind of audio that is networked throughout your house and so forth. But the problem that we run into, and I have Sonos as well, we've had Sonos for years since we first did this partnership, is it's expensive to bring a new room and the next room and the next room online. So I think this is a place they absolutely have to be. And the thing that's always intrigued me about Sonos is they've generally been very smart about cannibalizing their products before others can, or right about the same time that others can. We first got Sonos, they had this really, at the time it seemed incredibly cool, but today it seems unbelievably clunky, big old screen that you carried around to control it with.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It was way ahead of its time. But the iPhone came out, and I remember thinking like, well, the iPhone's going to do a better job. And the thing was like $500, and it was an integral part of the system. Within, 3 months after the iPhone opened itself up to outside apps, Sonos had basically told the world, you no longer have to buy that high margin $500 device. We got an iPhone app, and they discontinued it, I believe, very quickly. So they're smart and gutsy about undermining and cannibalizing their own product line. Not surprised to see them do this. I haven't bought one of these things yet. I'm actually planning to this week because we have only 2 more rooms that need Sonos speakers.
Nice.
And I'll bet they're going to be awesome, and I think they're going to sound great. And I really respect this company a great deal.
I'm a fan too, although I've always bought my Sonos devices with points from a loyalty program because they're so darn expensive. So $200 makes this more like, oh, okay, maybe I will grab one for the kitchen. I think that's a good advantage for them. Let's move on to the randomizer. Which we do now with a live vote, a vote for our live audience to weigh in on, which makes it less random, but the name Stochastikizer just doesn't sound very good. So the one that won today with 60% of the vote, machine gun toting robots may soon back up U.S. soldiers because, come on, machine gun toting robots. How are you going to argue with that? This is actually part of a larger robotics demonstration, both the U.S. Army and the U.S. Marines testing prototypes and seeing companies like Northrop Grumman showing off what they've got going on. And these are not Terminator style. They're on treads. They're on wheels, walking around. And the Army says that they don't have any plans to let them fire on their own without human intervention. Scary, intriguing, or both?
I just think of Big Dog coming towards you with a machine gun on its back, and yeah, that's pretty darn scary.
I just wonder how actually effective they are. They look a little bulky. They look like they might be easy to take out if I'm well armed on the other side.
I'd want it to say you have 10 seconds to comply before shooting. I think
in
that
a
would
robot
be
voice
kind of
or
awesome.
human voice?
in a RoboCop voice.
Right.
I mean, I think the creepy thing about this is exactly what you alluded to, Tom, is the potential for human thought to be taken out of the kill loop. At this point, they're certainly saying that there will be a human who gives the command to fire. But as this becomes more and more standard part of the battlefield and a more and more common way of waging war, and as the other side gets them, and as, you know, it becomes an arms race, a literal arms race between two sides in a battle, at some point, I believe one side will say, if we allow this thing to make its decision on its own and take the human out of the loop, it's going to fire that much faster and get the shot off first. And at some point, you remove the human decision from the decision to fire, and you have robots essentially taking out humans. There's a really good book. It's a few years old now and a little bit outdated. A guy named P.W. Singer wrote a book called Wired for War. And he gave a really good TED Talk, too, which is kind of a nice 18-minute summary of it, which deals with a lot of these issues. And I think there's some sort of scary ones associated with it. Although I guess if I were an infantry soldier, I would very much like the idea of this thing preceding me into battle.
Yeah, I would rather have it precede me in the battle than me precede me
into battle. Precisely.
Yeah, for sure. Let's check what's on the calendar, Sarah.
We have kind of the second half of October is busy, starting with a conference tomorrow, Ad Age Digital. It's happening in San Francisco at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. And there are quite a few interesting speakers.
Those ad people, they know how to pick a hotel.
That's it. Yeah. There's some money in advertising. So
there seems to be. Let's move on to the email.
Incoming message.
So we're more coming our way. Scott, the camp director, writes, hey, this may not classify as breaking news, but in the category of a company doing something better than expected, I received my new Kindle HDX on the 12th, ahead of the scheduled release and delivery date of the 18th. That's 6 days early. I haven't heard too many other people talking about this, but that's pretty awesome, Scott. I don't know if maybe that's a mistake, but good for you. You got a Kindle HDX. Nicely done. Well, that is it for this episode of Tech News Today. Rob Reed is the author of Year Zero, which you can find in bookstores everywhere. But the best place to go right now is to get the electronic version for 99 cents. You want people to do this, right, Rob?
Yeah, I want as many people as possible to read this thing. And face it, nobody writes comedic science fiction hoping to get rich. I don't think that I or Random House or Amazon will make any particularly significant money at 99 cents. But if twice as many or, more people read it as a result of this, it's been out for a little more than a year and it's had a pretty good run. But the more people read it, the happier I am as a writer. So I hope a lot of people grab this thing.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. It's always great talking with you, man. And it's been a pleasure to have you on so many shows. You were on Twit yesterday. You were on Sword and Laser with us last week. It's awesome.
I love it.
Thanks for sharing so much of your day.
Thank you so much.
You can vote on our stories right here on the network, technewstoday.reddit.com. That's the place to go to let us know, hey, I like this story. I'm going to submit it. Or I hate that story. Someone else submitted. I don't want them to talk about it. Maybe you hate a story and you want to make sure we don't talk about it. You can submit it and vote it down. You can do all those things at technewstoday.reddit.com. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're a YouTube viewer, you may be wanting to watch the show on the YouTubes. You can do that at youtube.com/technewstoday. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT show. I, as Akhtar, will be back tomorrow with our guest Miriam Jouar as well. We'll see you then. Sure, I mispronounced your name, Miriam. I apologize.
You got it right.